So dear children, in the last class, we were discussing about The Happy Prince, the beautiful short story written by Oscar Wilde. And in the story, the author explains a beautiful relationship between the happy prince and the swallow. Okay. High above the city on a tall column, the prince's statue was situated, and it was covered with gold, and his eyes were made of sapphire, and a red ruby was there on his sword hilt. And we find that one day a swallow was migrating to Egypt. His friends had already reached Egypt, but then he waited for some more time to go there. And as he was on his journey, on his way to Egypt, he thought of taking rest at the feet of the prince's statue. As he was about to put his head under the wing, he found that a drop of water, one by one, was falling onto his body. And then later on, the swallow realized that it was not raining, but the drop of water were actually the tears of the happy prince. And what was the reason for happy prince's tears? Who can tell me? Emrin, can you tell me what is the reason for happy prince's tears? The prince was called as happy prince, but in fact he was crying. What is the reason?
Because the when you are situated in the statue, we can see all the mistakes done by the people.
All right, good. So well, why was the prince called the happy prince? So well?
Yes, ma'am.
Why was the prince called the happy prince? Sowell is not responding. Elsa, can you tell me what is the reason why the prince was called happy prince?
Ma'am, because when he was living in the palace, he was having a luxury life. But when he was dead, he saw all the sorrow of the people.
Yes, very good. So we find that the reason for the prince's tear was he could see all the unhappiness and miseries of the people. When he was alive, he lived a luxury life in the palace. He could spend a very jolly good time with friends, and he never experienced what is sadness. But after his death, his big statue was kept on top of the high above the city, and he could see all the unhappiness, and that is the reason why the prince was crying. And we also find that the prince make a request to the swallow to take a red ruby and give it to the woman whose son was ill. Her son was ill due to fever, and the boy was asking for oranges, but the mother was unable to give him oranges except river water. Okay, so the prince makes a request to swallow, but then did swallow was ready to carry out the request made by the happy prince? Arun, what do you think? Arun? No response from Arun. Justin? Was swallow ready to carry out the request made by the happy prince initially?
Yes.
Did he agree? Did he agree first? First of all, did swallow agree?
No.
No, swallow did not agree. Swallow told that he has to go to Egypt because his friends were waiting. But later on, swallow felt sympathy for the prince, and then he agreed to take the red ruby from the sword hilt of the prince. Okay, take page number 30. We'll continue. Jaslyn, can you read? 6th paragraph. So we find that the swallow is acting as a messenger for the happy prince. The swallow picked out, did you see that paragraph? Jaslyn?
Ma'am, I am in my auntie's house, so I don't
have the text.
Book.
All right.
No,
Saniya, read the paragraph. The swallow picked out the great ruby from the prince's sword from there. Yes.
The swallow picked out the great ruby from the prince's sword and flew away with it in the beak over the roofs of the town. He passed by the cathedral tower where the white marble angels were sculptured. He passed by the palace and heard the sound of dancing. A beautiful girl came out on the balcony with her lover.
Yes.
I hope my dress will be ready in the time for the state ball. She said, I have ordered flowers to be embroidered on it. But the seamstresses are so lazy.
Yes.
He passed over the river and saw the lanterns hanging on the masts of the ships. At last, he came to the poor woman's house and looked in. The boy was tossing feverishly on his bed, and the mother had fallen asleep. She was so tired.
Yes.
In he hoped and laid the
Laid the
great
great
ruby on the
ruby
table beside the woman's
temple.
temple.
Mm.
Then he flew gently round the bed.
Fanning the boy's forehead. Fanning
For the boy's forehead with his wings. How cool I feel, said the boy. I must be getting better, and he sank into a delicious slumber. Then the swallow flew back to the happy prince and told him what he had done. It is curious, he remarked, but I feel quite warm now, although
Yes.
it is so cold. That is because you have done a good action, said the prince, and the little swallow began to think, and then fall asleep. Thinking
fell
always made him
asleep.
sleepy.
All right, thank you. So we find that initially the swallow was not ready to carry out the request made by the prince, but later on, as he felt sympathy for the prince because the prince was crying and he was ready to help the woman. He passed by the cathedral tower where the white marble angels were sculptured. He passed by the palace and heard the sound of dancing. A beautiful girl came out on the balcony with her lover. So actually, what was the job done by the woman whose son was ill? Sriram, can you tell me? What was the job of the woman? We find that the lady's hands were rough and red and coarse. What was she doing? Unmute and give me the response.
Ma'am, I don't have the textbook.
You don't have the textbook. You didn't attend previous class also? Okay. Lakshmi Nanda, why your camera is not on? Lakshmi? Yes. Tell me, what was the job done by the lady? Saniya, many videos are off. Okay, every time I used to tell you again and again, please keep your videos on. Who will give me the answer?
I'm seamstress.
Yes, very good. Very good, Srihari. The lady was a seamstress. What do you mean by seamstress? A woman who stitches or weaves the cloth. So we find that she was embroidering flowers on the gown. So the swallow, when he passed by the palace, he heard the sound of dancing, and he could also see a beautiful girl coming onto the balcony along with her lover. I hope my dress will be ready in time for the state ball, she said. Who is the speaker here in this line? Who is the speaker? For whom the woman is embroidering the gown? Come on, look into your textbook and give me the answer. Shania, can you tell me? For whom the woman is embroidering the flowers on the satin gown? In page number 29, last paragraph, you will see the answer. For whom she is embroidering the flowers? She's embroidering the flowers on the satin gown.
Queen's maid.
Yes, for the queen's maid of honor. Yes, for the queen's maid. So the woman was embroidering flowers on the satin gown for the queen's maid. So who is the speaker here? I hope my dress will be ready in time for the state ball. Who is the speaker?
Queen's maid.
Yes, the queen's maid. The queen's maid is the speaker here. Okay. I hope my dress will be ready in time for the state ball, she said. I have ordered flowers to be embroidered on it. But the seamstresses are so lazy. So are the seamstresses lazy in fact? What do you think? Anjali Priya?
Tired.
Yes, actually they are not lazy, but they are so tired. They work from morning till evening for their livelihood, but then they are so tired and they could not do their work. That is why they were not able to give the dress or the gown on time. But then we find that the rich people always misunderstand the poor ones. They do not understand the reality about the ordinary people. And the maid of queen or queen's maid tells to her lover that the seamstresses are so lazy. That is why it's getting late. Okay, that's why they are late to give my gown. He passed over the river and saw the lanterns hanging on the mast of the ship. What do you mean by mast? M-A-S-T-S. Mast.
Main.
The same word we have come across.
And the main area of the ship.
Yes, a tall upright pole where the flag or something like that can be hung. Okay, a tall upright post or other structure on a ship. So the lanterns were hung on the mast of the ships. At last he came to the poor woman's house and looked in. The boy was tossing feverishly on his bed and the mother had fallen asleep. So what a pathetic situation. The boy is ill with fever, but the mother is unable to give him medicine and food. The boy asked for oranges, but she could only give him river water. She was so tired, and he hoped and laid the great ruby on the table beside the woman's temple. What do you know? Do you know what is a temple, or what do you mean by temple? Temple. Take down the meaning. A cover or cap. A cover or cap worn on the fingers. A cover or cap worn on the fingers to push the needle in swaying, S-E-W-I-N-G, in swaying. A cover or cap worn on the finger to push the needle in swaying. So while you stitch or while you sew the dress, it's a kind of protective cover worn on your finger so that the needle will not prick you. Got it? Is it clear to you? What is simple?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
And can you repeat once more?
Yes. Thimble means a cover or a cap worn on the finger. A cover or a cap worn on the finger to push the needle in swing, S-E-W-I-N-G. Okay, so the swallow got into the house of the woman and he kept the great ruby on the table beside the woman's thimble. So the woman is asleep out of tiredness and the boy is also tossing feverishly on his bed. Then he flew gently around the bed, fanning the boy's forehead with his wings. So we find that the swallow is also comforting the boy by flapping its wings so that a gentle wind came round. How cool I feel, said the boy. I must be getting better. And he slank into a delicious slumber. Slumber here means sleep. Okay, so due to heavy body pain and due to heavy fever, the boy was shivering. But then when the swallow flapped with his wings and gave a gentle breeze, then the boy felt much more better and he fell into a deep sleep. Slumber here means sleep. I must be getting better, and he slank into a delicious slumber. Then the swallow flew back to the happy prince and told him what he had done. It is curious, he remarked, but I feel quite warm now, although it is cold. So the climate is becoming colder and colder, and that is why the swallow was migrating to Egypt to have a better or warm condition. But then we find that after doing a good thing, the swallow feels that even though the climate is cold, he is feeling quite warm. That is because you have done a good action, said the prince. And the little swallow began to think, and then he fell asleep. Thinking always made him sleepy. So what is the reason why the swallow felt warm even though it was cold? Revu, can you tell me what is the reason why swallow felt warm even though the climate was cold? Hmm? Yes, unmute and speak. Did you get my question? What is the reason why the swallow was feeling warm even though the climate was cold? Page number 30.
The swallow flew back to Athens and he swallowed on everything. The happy prince and it was curious.
Yes. What is the reason why swallow felt warm though it was cold? Abin, can you help Revu?
Ma'am.
Yes.
He felt warm because he did a good action.
Yes, very good. The swallow felt quite warm though it was cold because he has done a good action. Gerlin, what was the good action done by swallow? Or how did swallow carry out the request made by the happy prince? Or how was the woman helped?
Swallow had took a ruby out of sword and give it to the mother and son and help them help them.
Yes, swallow
And
took the
with the ruby they buy oranges and whatever they need
they
medicine.
bought. All right, all right. So we find that the swallow took the red ruby out of the prince's sword's hilt and he placed it on the table beside the woman's thimble. Not only he gave the red ruby, but he also flapped his wing around the boy's head so that the boy would feel better due to the cool breeze. Okay, that point also has to be added. All right. Now we'll continue. Anthony will read. Anthony, page number 30, last paragraph. Read.
Sunday he flew down the river and had a bath. Tonight I go to Egypt, said the swallow, and he was in high spirits at the prospect. He visited all the monuments and sat a long time on top of the church
Steeple.
When the moon rose,
When the moon rose,
he flew back to the happy prince.
All right. Sean, read the remaining.
Have you any commissions for Egypt? He cried. I am just starting. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince. Will you stay with me one night longer? I am waiting for in Egypt, answered the swallow.
Waited for in Egypt.
I am waited for in Egypt, answered the swallow. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince. Far away across the city, I see a young man in a garret. He is leaning over a desk covered with paper, and in the glass by his side there is a bunch of
withered violets.
His hair is brown and crisp, and his lips are red as a pomegranate.
Yes.
And he has larger and dreamy eyes. He is trying to finish a play for the director of the theater. But he is too cold to write anymore. There is no fire in the garret.
Great.
And hunger has made him faint.
All right. Alna, read the next paragraph. Alna, are you there? Soval, read.
Ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, from I will wait with you one night longer.
That is already read by Sean. Yes. Continue.
Said the swallow, who really had a great heart. Good heart. He asked if he should take other ruby to the young playwright.
All right. Thank you, Soval. So you can mute now. So everyone look into the textbook. When day broke, he flew down to the river and had a bath. Tonight I go to Egypt, said the swallow, as he was in high spirits at the prospect. So swallow did not have any plan to listen to the prince. Actually, the only intention of the swallow was that he has to take a rest between the feet of the prince. But then very soon we find that the prince and swallow become great friends. When day broke, he flew down to the river and had a bath. Tonight I go to Egypt, said the swallow, as he was in high spirits at the prospect. Okay, so he had already made up his mind about the matter that tonight, that is in that night, he will be traveling to Egypt. He visited all the monuments and sat a long time on the top of the church steeple. Steeple means tower. Okay, so the swallow flew all around the place. He visited many monuments, many buildings, and then he came and sat on the top of the tower of the church. Steeple means tower. When the moon rose, he flew back to the happy prince. When it was the night time, he just went to happy prince to say goodbye. Have you any commissions for Egypt? He cried. I'm just starting. Commission means, what do you mean by commission? Command to act in a prescribed manner. So the statue is the statue of the happy prince. So prince will always makes commands. Okay, not request actually. So the swallow is asking, do you have anything to communicate to the people anywhere in Egypt? Have you any commissions for Egypt? Commission means command to act in a prescribed manner. Got it? Command to act in a prescribed manner. Have you any commissions for Egypt? He cried. I'm just starting. So the swallow has made up his mind that tonight he will go to Egypt. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince. Will you stay with me one night longer? So as soon as the prince heard that swallow was going to Egypt, he makes a request. Little swallow, my dear swallow, will you just stay with me for one more night? I'm waited for in Egypt, answered the swallow. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince. So the prince doesn't want the swallow to go away because he is so upset by seeing all the miseries and unhappiness and the difficulties of the people. So he wanted to help them and he requests the swallow to stay with him for one more night. Far away across the city, I see a young man in a garret. So this is the second help done by the happy prince and the swallow. Far away across the city, I see a young man in a garret. Garret, what do you mean by garret? Garret means, any idea what is a garret? It's not carrot, it is garret. Garret. Garret means unfinished part of a house just under the roof. Unfinished part of a house. A room or an unfinished part of a house just under the roof. That's what you mean by garret. Far away across the city, I see a young man in a garret. He is leaning over a desk covered with papers. And in the glass by his side, there is a bunch of withered violets. Violets, you know what is violet? It's a kind of a flower. And withered means dried. Okay, so he was leaning over the desk with a lot of papers on it. And beside his desk, there is a flower vase which is made of glass. And in that flower vase, it was found so many withered, dried flowers. Okay. And in the glass by his side, there is a bunch of withered violets. His hair is brown and crisp, and his lips are red as a pomegranate. And he has large and dreamy eyes. He's trying to finish a play for the director of the theater. So what is the job of the man? That the prince, the happy prince that see? He is trying to finish a play for the director of the theater. So can you tell me what is the job of the man?
Playwright.
Yes, playwright. Okay, playwright. Playwright. W-R-I-G-H-T, playwright. It's not playwriter, it is playwright. So his profession, he is a playwright. So he was trying to finish a play for the director of the theater. But then, was he able to finish his script? No. Because it is too cold to write anymore. Have you experienced extreme cold climate? Have you ever experienced a cold climate? What you would do if the climate becomes very cold? Tell me. What you would do when the climate becomes very cold? Yeah, you will try to warm up yourself.
Sleep.
Ah, yes, you will go to sleep. Exactly. How will you sleep? You will put a blanket over your body. Yes, you will try to cover yourself with a blanket. Yes, you would put sweaters, you would put blanket over your body, and you will try to make yourself warm. In the English movies, have you seen a fireplace where the wooden logs will be placed and fired? Have you seen that? Yes. Yes. So that is what the author is talking about. The climate is too cold for the man to write any more of his script. There is no fire in the grate. Grate means fireplace. In the fireplace, there is no fire. The man is unable to buy even the wooden logs to make fire and to make himself warm. And hunger has made him faint. And he does not have enough money to buy food. Okay, so these are the two reasons why the man was leaning over his desk covered with papers and he is unable to finish his play. Okay, there is no fire in the grate and hunger has made him faint. I will wait with you one night longer, said the swallow, who really had a good heart. So we find that the swallow, just like the happy prince, also had a good heart and he is ready to help the happy prince. He asked if he should take another ruby to the young playwright. So the swallow became so concerned about the man who was struggling himself to make a livelihood by writing the script for the director of the theater. But we find that due to the lack of money, he does not have enough fire in the grate and not a proper food to make himself healthy. So the swallow asked the happy prince whether he could take a ruby and give it to the man. Alas, I have no ruby now, said the prince. Lakshmi, read. Lakshmi Nanda, read.
Ma'am.
Yes. Read. Last paragraph of page number 31.
It is finger.
So we find that the happy prince's statue had only one ruby. The ruby was hung on the sword hilt. And the ruby was given to whom?
The
woman. Yes, the ruby was given to the woman who was a seamstress. Any more rubies remaining with the happy prince?
No.
No more. So now let's see what is the prince trying to do in order to help the playwright. Read.
In the choir below said the happy
Alas,
prince.
I have no ruby now. From that paragraph onwards. Page number 31, last paragraph. Did you see that, Lakshmi? Oh, yes.
Said the prince, my eyes are all that I have left. They are made of rare sapphires, which were brought out of India 8,000 years ago. He ordered the swallow to pluck out one of them and take it to them and take it to the playwright. He will sell it to the jeweler and buy firewood and finish his play. He said,
all right, thank you. So now we find that the happy prince and the swallow is trying to help the man who was a playwright who is unable to finish his play due to the extreme cold and lack of food. So the happy prince asked the swallow to take out one of his rare sapphire eyes and give it to the playwright so that he will be able to sell it and buy firewood and finish his play. Okay. So children, is the portion clear to you? Yes or no? Please unmute and give me your response.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Any doubts? Okay, so it's time for us to wind up. Please go through the textbook. Okay. Textual reading is very important. Please go through it. I'll see you in the next class and be ready to answer to the questions. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you all. Thank you
Thank
all.
you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.